Hi everyone, welcome to Stars with the Stars tonight. I'm trying this again. A little bit of technical issues the first time I tried to do this. Looks like we're good now though. I see it here on my
Hi everyone.
Oops. I see it here on my phone, so we're all good. So tonight I'm doing a Stars with the Stars about Barbara Eden, who is one of my most favorite people ever. And most of you probably know her as Jeannie in I Dream of Jeannie. She was one of the main characters of the show. It was a television show that ran weekly between 1965 and 1970, so basically at the end of the 1960s. And she co-starred with actor Larry Hagman, who was Tony Nelson, the astronaut that found her on the beach. So, this show was a little bit, in some ways, controversial for that time because there were a lot of people born in the 1950s that took offense to even like her costume. There was a lot of conversation around her belly button, so they worked hard at actually having her harem pants be higher waisted to cover up her belly button. I think as the show continued on, it ran for 5 seasons, they started to kind of loosen up about that a little bit. But as you can see, Barbara Eden is a tremendously beautiful woman, definitely an amazing spiritual soul, and she's one of my favorite actresses and definitely one of my most favorite people. So I wanted to, look up her chart. Just a really timeless beauty, just a wonderful woman, beautiful woman, amazing actress. And I love I Dream of Jeannie so very much. This must be like a remake because the inside of the bottle doesn't look like that in the episodes. Another important character was actually Captain Healy, so Tony Nelson's kind of best friend slash sidekick. Hi, sister. Hi, Brandy. I'm doing Stars with the Stars about Barbara Eden, who's in I Dream of Jeannie, which is like one of my most favorite shows ever. So tonight I'm going to be talking about Barbara Eden's astrology chart. I might do another Stars with the Stars of Larry Hagman. He has a very interesting chart as well, and it's really fun too. You can even look at the compatibility between the two of them. But yeah, I have a huge girl crush on Barbara Eden. I just love her so much. And I love her as Jeannie. I love all of the things about I Dream of Jeannie. And just, I'm also very obsessed with like the 1960s. I love a lot of the art, the television, and also the music that came out in the 1960s, particularly towards the end of the 1960s. So yeah, this is good stuff. What else do I want to say before I dive into the chart? Yeah, just wanted to do a quick kind of Google images here of Barbara Eden so you could see, if you're not familiar with who she is. But again, this was, a television show. She's obviously had many other roles, but this is a prominent one that she was in, was from the years 1965 to 1970. And that's going to be important because we may even have some time for me to pull up some of the transits around that time, because there were some really unique transits going on then. So this is from Astro Theme, her birth data, August 23rd. So love it. She was born 5 days before me. August 23rd, 1931 at 2:20 a.m. in Tucson, Arizona. She's a sun in Leo at the final degree of Leo with a moon in Capricorn. Cancer ascendant, midheaven at 29 degrees of Pisces. So I'm going to be talking, this is very important, the 29-degree Leo sun and the midheaven at 29 degrees of Pisces. One astrologer that I follow talks about the fact that this combination of Leo and Pisces is literally like magic. So also the 29th degree is considered to be a critical degree in astrology because it's the final degree of that sign before we change into the next zodiac sign. A zodiac sign runs from 0 up to 30 degrees. So that means that she had incarnated, she came in manifesting the fullest extent of this energy possible in Leo and in Pisces. That's very powerful. She's a birth path 9. You can see some details here about her height, her Chinese astrology. I also find it interesting that she was born in Arizona, because many people believe that there are, spiritual ley lines and vortices that exist in Arizona, particularly in Tucson, Arizona. So I just find it really interesting, that she's from there because I do view her as a very spiritual soul, and we'll see some of that in her chart as well. but just a really kind, compassionate person. You know, I've read a lot about some of the kind of the stories from the set of when she was on I Dream of Jeannie, and in many ways she was a very smart businesswoman, definitely with that moon in Capricorn, but also she was a very nurturing woman, you know, and at times there was conflict or tension with her co-star, and she was often the one to kind of smooth it over and help it out. So I really do view her as being almost like a very spiritual Pleiadian type of guiding light that in many ways I feel like she was ahead of her time, you know. So we could see the chart here. Beautiful chart, lots going on. So charts that have a lot of activity kind of all around, well, let me first start by saying that there's no right or wrong chart. Hi, Toya. Have you ever been on my Facebook Lives before? I'm not sure. So I'm doing Stars with the Stars. This is a series I started where I'm going over different celebrity charts, and I'm picking one, and on the off weeks that we don't have new or full moons, I am doing astrology walkthroughs of those charts. So this is something that I do personally on my own time all the time. Love always deepening my practice, being a professional astrologer, learning, looking at other charts, deepening my knowledge base and my kind of learning library to go into when I'm advising people doing readings professionally for people. Oh, hi. Well, welcome, Toya. So I do Facebook Lives where I do card pulls, and then sometimes I do Facebook Lives where I do astrology, because I have a spiritual business where I do both. I'm a professional astrologer and also a certified angel card reader. I do oracle card readings. So welcome. Yeah, so we could see her chart here, and I just wanted to start by saying there's no right or wrong way to have a chart. But definitely there are healthier charts than others, and healthier charts are charts that reflect energy at various spots along the zodiac wheel. If a chart is really concentrated, I have seen many charts that are concentrated to even like 2 primary energies, or even like just the lower half of the chart or the top half of the chart. That can be kind of challenging, because that means that you don't have access to 6 out of the 12 potential energies of the zodiac. So you might be, however, very focused and very strong in the energies that you have the big pile up in. It depends on what those energies are and how they're aspected. So a lot of this is really variable. But as an astrologer, first we look at, okay, how is the chart kind of laid out? And usually I tune in with my intuition, and usually certain things kind of start to jump out to me right away, and then I kind of follow my intuition through that. So, you know, astrology is a language. It's a language of the stars, right? So when you're a professional astrologer, you're being a linguist of the stars. You're literally translating this mathematical spatial language into kind of modern, you know, modern day, modern awareness, the language we speak, you know? So an AstroTheme is a cool site to look up a chart, you know, because you can actually hover over a particular planet. It'll tell you the degree if it's in retrograde, and it'll kind of obscure the other aspects. So that's kind of nice as well. So I might be pinging back and forth between AstroTheme and Astro.com, but I did actually plug this chart into Astro.com. And again, we're talking about Barbara Eden, one of my most fave people. So if you're jumping on this late, if you're catching this on replay, I will also upload this to my YouTube channel. Definitely kind of go back and watch from the beginning, because I explain a bit more about A Dream of Jeannie and Barbara Eden, and just love her so very much. But this is her chart here, so I've plugged it into Astro.com. So again, super cool that she was basically born on the last day of Leo season, almost on basically very cuspy. So the last day of Leo season into Virgo season. And we could see that here because her sun sign is at 29 degrees. So I was talking about this earlier, that this is a very critical degree. The beginning degrees and the ending degrees are very important in astrology. There's a little bit of debate, you know, amongst astrologers. Some astrologers are into that, some are not. I personally am very much, because I've studied a bit of Vedic astrology before I got into Western, and it's heavily emphasized in Vedic astrology, which is the Indian, more ancient version of astrology. So this means that her sun sign, her soul, chose to incarnate in Leo season at the fullest possible capacity or extent of Leo. So Leo is the sign of being seen. It is of leadership. It is also of the arts, theater, drama. So this is a fantastic placement for an actress, which she was. We also have Sun conjunct Venus. So Sun conjunct Venus creates this allure and this beauty and this magnetism to the person, which combining that in Leo, Venus in Leo, Sun in Leo, just really draws you in even more to this person, because Leo carries the energy of being seen. And as you could see, she was a tremendously beautiful woman, so you can definitely see the Sun conjunct Venus. And then also when we're looking at the physical aspects of a person, we're looking at the ascendant, the descendant, and the midheaven. The IC is important too, but that's more so the person's inner world, like their home life. Doesn't really affect the way that they look too much. And I've also plotted a few asteroids on here as well. So we have this beautiful Sun conjunct Venus. They're together at the ending, literally within 5 degrees at the end of Leo. So beautiful. She's got Neptune at 5 degrees of Virgo. I think this is part of the reason why I'm so in love with her, because her Neptune is actually conjunct my Sun, Mars, and Venus. So that means that she and I together have a Sun conjunct Neptune, Venus conjunct Neptune, Mars conjunct Neptune in our synastry, our relationship chart. So this means that she provides that freedom or flow into this kind of magical spiritual world, And I Dream of Jeannie is a show that I've been obsessed with ever since I was a little girl. And I've been kind of re-watching episodes recently, just completely loving on it. And I adore Barbara Eden so much and Jeannie, so that's how synastry can work. One of many, many aspects that come together in synastry, but her Neptune being on my personal planets, my early personal planets in Virgo, definitely creates this kind of magical energy for me by being around her presence. So pretty cool stuff. She also has Mercury in Virgo, which is really cool. Her Mercury is actually conjunct my Mercury. Kind of a wider orb though, like maybe 7 degrees there. So maybe not quite conjunct anymore. She was born in a Mercury retrograde. So people that are born in a Mercury retrograde, sometimes either in schooling or through something in their life, sometimes people born in a Mercury retrograde can even be born with some type of speech impediment or some type of learning issue where it takes them a little bit longer to get kind of caught up to speed with learning. But to be honest, because Barbara Eden's Mercury is in Virgo, that's exalted. In astrology, that is a very favorable placement for Mercury. This is one of, Virgo is ruled by Mercury, so this is a home placement for Mercury here. So this is very, very harmonious and very smart. And then she's also got it in her 3rd house, which is the house of learning and Gemini. The other ruler associated, or Mercury's rulership, is also synonymous with Gemini. So Virgo and Gemini are both ruled by Mercury, very of the mind, intellectual, very smart, So even though she has that Mercury retrograde, I would say that she probably was still quite quick intellectually because of the fact that she had Mercury and Virgo in the 3rd house, which gives it ultra strength. And then we go deeper in astrology, right? So then we look at the aspects. So if this Mercury was afflicted, meaning that it had harsh or tense aspects on it, that might also hurt it further. But if we look, she has only positive aspects to her Mercury. She has a trine over to her Chiron in Taurus. That's about a 4-degree trine there, or 4-degree orb. A trine is a harmonious aspect within the same element. If we look here, she has a sextile, another harmonious aspect, a 60-degree angle between her Pluto and her Mercury, her Pluto in Cancer there, and her Mercury in Virgo. So she had this ability at times to tune in to her intuition and make intellectual decisions based on her intuition, which is pretty cool. Also, her Mercury goes over to her Saturn in Capricorn. So I'm pretty sure Barbara Eden is still alive, I think, pretty sure. So she was born in 1930, so she'd be definitely getting older now. Let's see if we go I think I had Wikipedia'd her first before I did the I Dream of Jeannie part. Yeah, so she is 88 years old. What a fun year, too. um, yeah, so she's 88 years old. So she is actually going through her third Saturn return because if you look, her Saturn is natally in her chart in Capricorn, and she is going through her third Saturn return because Saturn is transiting through Capricorn. In fact, it's probably quite close to her natal Saturn. So the third Saturn return is typically not as harsh. You know, some people don't make it to a third Saturn return, but it's typically not as harsh as, definitely not as harsh as the first, or not as harsh as the second, unless you've been really slacking and like haven't done what you were supposed to do in your first 2 cycles of Saturn. But the Saturn return is significant because that only happens every 28 to 30 years. It's a very important transit, a couple year period, 2 to 3 year period, with potentially even like a post shadow where you're doing a lot of restructuring or responsibility in your life in whatever area Saturn is in, the sign and house it's in your natal chart. So if we look here, her Mercury has this harmonious aspect with her Pluto in Cancer, but then it also has this pretty tight, within 2 degrees, trine over to her Saturn in Capricorn. So this is bringing a more of a grounding, structured force. So this is also bringing in the very intellectual mind as far as business goes. And yeah, very strong Mercury here. Even though it's in retrograde, it has positive aspects to it. It's in its home sign, and it's also in the house of Gemini, which is the other ruler of Mercury. So pretty cool stuff there. Her moon is in Capricorn, which is actually trining over to, it's an exact trine over to her Neptune in Virgo. So this is bringing, and this is an exact trine, the degrees are exactly the same, so that makes it even more important. Whenever the orbs get tighter, or if they're at the exact degree, it means that the aspect is felt even stronger because the degrees are exact. So this is another harmonious aspect, and this means that she definitely was bringing in kind of like practical spirituality into, again, business smarts, because having a moon in Capricorn gives you this naturally intuitive way of understanding how to run a business or kind of commandeer yourself in business, you know. And then look, the moon is actually in the 6th house, which is the house of Virgo. So super interesting because the moon is intuition and emotion, which is actually very similar to Neptunian energy. So that's in the house of Virgo, in the sign of Capricorn, very grounded, very practical, very, very wise. And then her Neptune is in this very Mercury ruled house. So overall, this is just pointing to a lot of intuitive smarts as well as a lot of business smarts, which is a great combination to have when you can make decisions for your career. Capricorn is also career from an intellectual standpoint as well as an intuitive emotional standpoint, you know, but in a grounded way. And I have read stories that, you know, she had informed some of the producers of the show to not do certain things because she felt like it would ruin the show. And ultimately, the decisions they made to do those things, even like kind of ignoring what she said, actually did end the show. So it's pretty funny. One of the things that she had said was that Tony and Jeannie should not get married. You know, that was a constant from the very first episode, season 1. That was a constant thread of her wanting, Jeannie's character always wanting to marry Tony Nelson. And there was always this kind of like underlying tension between them because of that. So that was like a major part of the show. And in, you know, into several seasons in, they decided to marry them. And, you know, it definitely changed kind of the energy of the show. So her recommendation was that they didn't get married because she kind of intuitively understood that maybe that would change things too much, you know. And actually that's what ended up kind of changing the dynamics of the show and ended up resulting in it not being renewed for another season after the 5th season. So pretty interesting, you know. It'll also be really cool when we look at Larry Hagman's chart, Tony Nelson's chart, and in another Stars with the Stars, and I can even do some synastry around that. So let's see, what else do I want to talk about with her chart? I want to talk about the fact that she has her midheaven at 29 degrees of Pisces. Again, super, super magical, you know. So Pisces rules literally the subconscious, dreams, romance. It's definitely related to Hollywood and movies. It's this kind of like magical quality that you can't quite grasp. So the fact that her midheaven was at the final degree, remember what I was saying about the 29 degrees, it's at the fullest extent of Pisces. So this gives her this even more magical quality, which makes her so perfect for this type of show because she's clearly able to be seen and heard in her leadership and her beauty as a female actress. She also can make money from being seen and heard in her leadership and her beauty because she has Jupiter in the second house in Leo. So through her own efforts, her own leadership efforts, her own creative endeavors, which for her was acting, she's able to really be blessed financially. You know, again, I really get the feeling that Barbara Eden is a very spiritual soul. And I think that, you know, she incarnated with this very magical energy to kind of be this like magical guiding light, you know, in many ways at the time that she was doing that show and in other things she's done as well. So I would not be surprised if she had almost like a spiritual mission, you know, in being here. So super cool that her midheaven is at the final degrees of Pisces. This just adds even more magic, and definitely we look for moon on the midheaven or even Venus on the midheaven, or like very, very soft feminine conjunctions on the midheaven, especially for female actresses, can be very important for them with their success. Because a lot of acting is communicating emotion and bringing people into a different type of world, right? So the fact that her midheaven is in Pisces just really, it's a beautiful place. Thank you, Brandy. It's a beautiful place to have a midheaven, you know, especially for the profession that she was in. So pretty cool. And also, if we look at her south node, it was in Libra, so it's pretty funny. Her south node is actually within 4 degrees of my south node, and her north node is within 4 degrees of my north node. So that might be yet another reason why I love her so much. So she's bringing in a lot of understanding about relationships, balance, peacefulness, and harmony. She brings that in from past lives. She's also got Mars in Libra, which is technically Mars's detriment. Mars wants to be in Aries, not in Libra. But I think that because she has this with other asteroids, very feminine, wise, nurturing asteroids, like this is Pallas Athena and this is Ceres, which is an asteroid of unconditional love. Actually, her Ceres is within 4 degrees of my moon, and, or no, 5 degrees, or no, 4 degrees of my moon and 4 degrees of my ascendant. So her Ceres is actually between my moon and my ascendant, which is pretty cool. Again, more reasons why I might love her. But she has a lot of beautiful, wise, nurturing, feminine asteroids here in Libra, which I definitely, in the house of Cancer. So I think this also brings in this beautiful, feminine, nurturing quality to her, which I think is also, you know, obviously you could see some of kind of the feminine strength in her. Obviously, being a genie, that's very Neptunian. It's like Neptunian of Neptunian. Hollywood is already Neptunian, but then this is like taking it to an even extra level, right? So that's like her Pisces midheaven. And then, you know, you can kind of also see, you can almost tune into like that moon in Capricorn, that very wise self that's like, she knows what she's doing, you know. A very practical businesswoman as well. And if you watch the show, you know, like I said, I watched it when I was little and I've been rewatching it now and I always love it so much. If you watch the show, you'll definitely feel some of this energy, this really beautiful Venus Libran energy, also nurturing. You know, a lot of her role is being a nurturing provider, really, to Tony Nelson, her co-star. So if we look at her ascendant, it's in Cancer, which means that she's ruled by the moon. So then we look to the placement of the moon, and that's in Capricorn. So pretty interesting, you know, because then she's basically got almost like a moon Saturn influence to her. So definitely carrying that motherly energy, that nurturing energy, but also that wise Saturnian energy, you know, that doesn't kind of take any prisoners. the same time. So she has a really cool kind of complex mosaic of energy. And, you know, if we look here, so she has Pluto square Uranus. So she was born at a time in history when we had a Uranus square Pluto, which is pretty significant because these two planets move very slowly. Pluto moves the slowest between the two, and Uranus still moves pretty slow. So that's pretty significant, you know, that she would have this tense aspect. But that would be also a generational aspect because those planets are moving pretty slowly there. And what else could we talk about? So she has some squares to her Chiron. Her Venus is square Chiron. So definitely some hurt or some wounds around relationships in her life. Maybe people potentially exploiting her resources or taking money from her because she has Chiron in Taurus, which is about financial security, feeling safe, assets, also a relationship with food. And this is in the 11th house, which is the house of society. So I wouldn't be surprised if as she became more successful, there were even people that tried to take away. However, because she's got that moon in Capricorn, she's very wise and very practical. So I definitely think that that would still help her out. And if you notice, her Saturn is actually trined over to that Chiron. So providing a supportive, stabilizing element to whatever those wounds might be there. And we could see here that she's got her North Node in Aries in the 10th, which is the house of Capricorn. So again, this brings in leadership, strong leadership energy, taking initiative. Again, Capricornian energy about career and success, which is pretty cool. So definitely, even though she doesn't have too much else in fire if we look, right? She doesn't have anything in Sagittarius. She does have Uranus in Aries, which is pretty cool. So that's like a very electric Uranus, right? Because it puts this air type planet with a fire sign. So we just completed a cycle of Uranus and Aries. We now have Uranus transiting through Taurus. So she was actually going through a Uranus return when that was going on, which is pretty cool, you know. What else do I want to talk about? She does have Moon square Mars. So that can be kind of tough. That can be like harsh or afflicted energy on the moon. Emotional hurts is a good way to talk about that. This can also be, again, possibly, you know, maybe acting impulsively in relationships and realizing that it wasn't practically, didn't serve her. It didn't serve her career or her assets in some type of way. So, you know, some things there. We also have, it's pulling up as Pluto square Mars, but that's a pretty wide orb of about 8 degrees. So, you know, for Pluto, we give that a pretty narrow orb. It is plotting it. I'm trying to see. Looks like it's definitely doing Mars square Pluto. So Mars, yeah, Mars square Pluto. So pretty interesting. Mars square Pluto can be quite intense, but again, because this is a pretty wide orb, like about 8 degrees, that's not that intense. It's, let me rephrase, it lessens the intensity because the orb is so wide. So let me actually just do one more fun thing for you guys before I kind of wrap this up. And let's actually go back and let's put in the transits for, I'm not sure when, let's see, I know it was in 1965. It'd be interesting to get the actual, let's see, here we go. So I Dream of Jeannie. Here we go, first episode date, September 18th, 1965. So let's do something fun and let's change the transits to be then, when I Dream of Jeannie premiered. And let's see what her chart looks like with the transits that were in effect at that time. This will be pretty cool. So we're gonna go here and we're gonna do with transits. So let's see what we got. So when we're looking for transits that were affecting someone, we're more so going to focus on the outer planets because the inner planets move more quickly. So let's see what we've got. On that date that, and I just said we're going to do outer planets, I'm going to jump into an inner planet, but I'm feeling called. So day the third, which was in her 12th, which is spiritual house. right? The house of Pisces. So again, Neptune energy. Looks like Jupiter was at the very end of Gemini, literally on the cusp, about to go into Cancer. So Jupiter takes to move through a sign. It's taking a little time to move to the bottom there. But Jupiter takes a full year, a couple months, to move through a sign. So this was Jupiter actually finishing up in her 12th house, moving through her house. So Jupiter moving the ascendant creates a beneficial fresh start, a source of blessings and abundance, to a new identity. So definitely this was the case for her, you know, with recognized now as Genie in the Dream series. Right? It looks like it's not wanting to load for me. That's okay. Maybe I'll refresh quick. This happened. Are we still live? I think so. Okay. Yeah, for some reason it stopped there. Well, this is taking a little bit. We can give it another minute. Oh, there we are. Back on my phone. Good. We'll just give it like another minute. If not, we're pretty much at time. So over her minute, and let's see if we can kind of see what other aspects we can find would be relevant to when it premiered and it'll start properly. Looks like it's not being too. Oh, that's. Let's see if it's going to load up. All right, well, I think it's taken a little bit too long here, and I don't want you guys to have to stare at a blank screen. So I'm going to pause here. I have been keeping these stars with the stars to about a half hour anyway, so we're pretty much at time. I want to thank everybody that was on this live. Anyone watching it on replay, feel free to leave a comment. Let me know that you were here. Definitely check out the links in the description of this video. My PayPal is there if you'd like to leave a contribution. You can also contact me for private readings. My email is there. I do angel card readings as well as astrology readings. Right now, email is the best way to contact me because I'm doing a lot of updates to my website. And, oh, there we go. We got it. Just as I was about to give up. So let's just look real quick. See what else jumps out. So yeah, moon transiting through her 12th house. That's really fun. Definitely the Jupiter transit. Super cool. She also at one point would have a Jupiter-Pluto conjunction. So that's quite interesting. Getting into the real depths of what that Pluto transit was for the Pluto and Cancer generation. Uranus was in Virgo. One of the reasons why I think I love the 1960s so much, because I definitely have a very interesting relationship with Uranus energy in my chart. And Uranus was basically transiting right around my Mercury. So during that time at the end of the 1960s, it was, you know, Uranus over my Mercury. So very playful, fun time. Also, actually Uranus and Pluto, and they were conjunct each other, which is very significant. That doesn't happen all the time. So Uranus was at 15 degrees of Virgo and Pluto was at 16 degrees of Virgo. So yeah, very powerful, electric, innovative time. Lots of ideas coming through about serving society and also ways to kind of reorganize the mind. Many, many things coming through during that time. So definitely, you know, the show is a very creative show, obviously, right? And definitely was different in the way that it was representing a woman. Definitely, you know, Jeannie is not from the United States. She's from, you know, basically the Middle East. And you could get into like a lot around the archetypes of, you know, Jeannie, and you could kind of argue different ways about it. But ultimately, it was just very different, right? Which Uranus is that. It is innovation, it's different energy. So I definitely think that it was a really great time for the show to be, you know, to be premiered. And definitely Uranus and Pluto transiting through Barbara Eden's third house, which is the house of communication, is perfectly in alignment with what that transit was about in Virgo, which is all about the mind, you know. So pretty cool stuff. And Saturn, it looks like, was in Pisces in the 9th. So at a certain point into, you know, the series, Saturn would have actually moved over her midheaven, which would provide this restructuring and stabilizing element to her appearance and her career. So it's almost like the blessings that came from this experience, right? So if Jupiter moves through one sign every year, this means that at the time that I Dream of Jeannie was running, which was about 5 years, or 1965, 1970, Jupiter moved through this part of her chart, 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 and this part of her chart, approximately. So that means it crossed over ascendant, which is significant. First house, or second house, or fourth house, or fifth house. So these are crucial houses for self-identity, money and assets, communication, friendships, networking, so much in the third house, home and family, and creativity and artistry. So even though I Dream of Jeannie only ran for 5 years, this gave her such a power boost to financial security and stability in her career as an actress. It really solidified her, you know, as an actress, and also became a real part of her identity with Saturn going on, you know, the midheaven. And she, you know, was, I don't know if it was in the pictures, but, you know, here's a thing from the Today Show, July 16th, 2015. She's talking about I Dream of Jeannie, you know, just a few years ago. So it definitely became a solid, stable part of her identity, which you could also see in some of the astrology as well. So pretty cool stuff. I love her so much. Thank you guys for joining the Stars with the Stars. If you're watching this on my Facebook business page, definitely give it a like and a follow. If you're on my YouTube, feel free to subscribe. And I look forward to seeing you all in the next Stars with the Stars. Much love. Bye-bye.